Picture Carthage, North Africa, around 247 BC. A boy is born into one of the city's most powerful families, the Barcids, and his father Hamilcar is a general still smarting from Carthage's defeat in the First Punic War against Rome. According to the ancient historian Polybius, when Hannibal was about 9 years old, his father took him to a temple and made him swear an oath of eternal hostility toward Rome. We can't verify the exact wording, since it comes down to us through later writers, but the sentiment stuck. Hannibal spent his childhood not in a classroom but on campaign in Spain, watching his father and later his brother-in-law Hasdrubal expand Carthaginian territory there. That was his real education, war, politics, and command learned firsthand. By 26, Hannibal was commander-in-chief of Carthage's forces in Spain, inheriting the job after Hasdrubal was assassinated. He didn't waste time. In 218 BC, after a dispute over the city of Saguntum, he triggered what we now call the Second Punic War, and then he did something almost nobody expected. Instead of sailing to invade Italy, he marched an army, including war elephants, over the Alps. It's one of the most audacious military moves in history. Thousands of men, horses, and elephants crossing frozen mountain passes with local tribes attacking them the whole way. Historians still argue about the exact route he took. Here's a detail most people don't know, though. Of the roughly 36 elephants he started with, only one is recorded as surviving the crossing and the Italian campaign that followed. A tough animal the soldiers nicknamed Surus, meaning the Syrian. Once in Italy, Hannibal delivered a string of stunning defeats to Rome, at the Trebia River at Lake Trasimene, and then his masterpiece, Cannae, in 216 BC. At Cannae, he encircled and annihilated a Roman army roughly twice the size of his own, a tactical feat still taught at military academies today as a textbook example of a double envelopment. Rome lost tens of thousands of men in a single day, one of the worst military disasters in its history. And yet Hannibal never marched on Rome itself. Whether he lacked the siege equipment, the reinforcements, or simply judged it too risky, historians still debate this, but it's often pointed to as the moment the war's momentum quietly shifted. Rome refused to meet him in open battle again, adopting a grinding strategy of attrition instead, wearing down his supply lines rather than risking another Cannae. Hannibal spent over a decade in Italy, undefeated in the field but unable to finish the job, while Carthage largely failed to reinforce him. Eventually, Rome took the fight to Carthage itself, and Hannibal was recalled home to defend his own city. In 202 BC, at the Battle of Zama, he faced the Roman general Scipio, a commander who had studied Hannibal's own tactics closely. Hannibal lost. It was the only major defeat of his career, and it ended the war. Hannibal didn't retire quietly. He went into political reform work in Carthage, then fled into exile when Rome demanded his surrender, spending years advising kings in the eastern Mediterranean, including Antiochus III of Syria. Rome kept hunting him. Around 183 BC, cornered by Roman soldiers at the court of King Prusias of Bithynia, in what is now northwest Turkey, Hannibal chose to take poison rather than be captured. He was in his 60s. One more lesser-known detail here. By this point, he'd already lost the sight in one eye years earlier, reportedly from an infection picked up crossing marshland in Etruria. So the man who terrified Rome for over a decade fought much of that war half-blind. So what do we take from a life like this? First, sheer brilliance in the moment. Even genius on the level of Cannae doesn't guarantee you win the war. Follow-through and logistics matter just as much as the flash of tactical inspiration. Second, your enemies learn from you. Rome's generals studied Hannibal's methods and eventually beat him at his own game. And maybe the deeper lesson is this: reputation and fear can carry you remarkably far. Rome trembled at his name for generations, but fear alone was never going to be enough to win outright. Eventually, someone always calls the bluff.